I know your secret. The words were soft, calm, almost gentle, but they hit me like something heavy dropping straight into my chest. For a second, I honestly thought I had imagined it. The office around me was still moving like normal. Keyboards, clicking, quiet conversations, someone laughing near the break area. But everything inside me just stopped. I slowly looked up. She was standing right in front of my desk. New girl. I had noticed her earlier when she walked in, Marcus introducing her to the team, but I hadn't paid much attention. I usually didn't. New people came and went all the time in our company, but now I couldn't look away. She tilted her head slightly, studying my face like she was waiting for something. Then, just as quietly, she smiled. "Relax," she said, and just like that, she turned and walked away. My name is Ethan Cole. I'm 27 years old, and I work as a software developer at a mid-sized tech company in Austin, Texas. I live alone in a small apartment about 10 minutes from downtown. Nothing fancy, just a one-bedroom with plain walls, a second-hand couch, and a desk that's seen better days. Most nights, it's just me, my laptop, and whatever takeout I ordered because I didn't feel like cooking. My life is simple, quiet. I keep it that way on purpose. No close friends at work. No unnecessary conversations. I come in, do my job, and leave. It's easier like that, safer, because the less people know about you, the better. At least that's what I've believed for a long time. Until today. I stared at my screen, but I wasn't seeing anything. The code in front of me blurred together, lines of text turning into meaningless shapes. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, unmoving. I know your secret, the sentence kept repeating in my head. What did she mean? My eyes shifted slightly, just enough to glance across the office. She was sitting at a desk near the window now, talking to Marcus. Calm. Focused. Like nothing had happened, like she hadn't just walked up to me and said something that could ruin everything. Maybe I misunderstood, maybe she was joking, but no. The way she looked at me. It wasn't random. It wasn't casual. It felt specific. Targeted. I swallowed slowly and forced myself to breathe normally. Hey, you good? I flinched. Marcus stood beside my desk, holding his coffee, looking down, at me with a slight frown. Yeah, I said quickly, sitting up straighter. Just bug in the code. He nodded. Happens. By the way, you met Lena yet? Lena. So that was her name. I glanced in her direction again, then back at Marcus. Briefly, I said. She's solid, Marcus continued. Came highly recommended. Thought she'd fit well with the team. I gave a small nod, pretending to focus back on my screen. Marcus lingered for a second, then walked off, but his words stayed with me. She's solid. That didn't help. If anything, it made it worse. The rest of the morning dragged. I tried to work, but my focus kept slipping. Every small movement in the office made me aware of her presence. Every time she laughed quietly or spoke, my attention snapped in that direction without me meaning to. She didn't come back to my desk. She didn't say anything else. She just acted normal. And somehow, that was more unsettling than anything. Around noon, I finally pushed my chair back and stood up. I needed air. The break area wasn't crowded. Just a couple of people grabbing snacks or refilling drinks. I headed straight for the coffee machine, more out of habit than anything else. I pressed the button and waited. Rough morning? Her voice, right behind me. My shoulders tensed instantly. I didn't turn around right away. I didn't trust my face to stay neutral. Something like that, I said, keeping my tone even. I grabbed my cup as the machine finished and finally turned. Lena stood there, leaning lightly against the counter. Up close, she looked calm. Not intimidating. Not aggressive, just observant. like she was always paying attention. "That line earlier," I said, before I could stop myself. "What did you mean?" Her expression didn't change. For a moment, she just looked at me. Then she took a small step forward, lowering her voice slightly. "You reacted fast," she said. "That's interesting." A cold feeling crept into my chest. "I don't know what you're talking about," I replied. She studied me for another second. Then, slowly, she smiled again. "Good," she said. And just like that, she walked past me and left the break area. I stood there, completely still. My coffee sat untouched in my hand. What was that? What kind of answer was that? My mind started racing again, faster this time. She didn't deny it. She didn't explain it. She just observed, like she was testing me. I set the cup down on the counter and ran a hand through my hair. This didn't make sense. There was no way she could know. No one here knew anything about my past. I had made sure of that. I kept my head down, built a clean record, avoided anything that could bring attention. I had been careful. So careful. And yet, the rest of the day passed in a blur. I avoided her as much as I could, staying focused on my screen, leaving my desk only when necessary. She didn't approach me again, but once or twice, I caught her looking in my direction, not staring, just noticing. And every time it happened, that same uneasy feeling came back. By the time work ended, I was mentally exhausted. I packed up quickly and left without saying much to anyone. The evening. Air outside was warm, the sky fading into soft shades of orange and purple as the sun dipped lower. Normally, I would have appreciated it. Today, I barely noticed. My apartment felt the same as always. Quiet. Still safe. I dropped my keys on the counter and sat down on the couch, staring at nothing. "I know your secret." I closed my eyes. No. She couldn't know. That part of my life was over. Buried. Left. Behind in a different city, a different job, a different version of me. No one here had any connection to it. No one. So why did it feel like everything was about to fall apart? I leaned forward, resting my elbows on my knees. For a long time, I just sat there, thinking, replaying every word, every look, every detail, and slowly, something started to settle in my chest. Not clarity, not relief, just a quiet, growing realization. If she really knew, if somehow, against all logic, she had found out the truth about what happened before I came here, then this wasn't just a coincidence. It wasn't random. It meant something had followed me, something I thought I had escaped. Let out a slow breath, staring at the floor, because if she really knew, my life here was already over. I didn't sleep much that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the same moment again. Lena standing in front of me, her voice calm, her expression unreadable. "I know your secret." By morning, my head felt heavy, like I hadn't rested at all. Still, I got up, got dressed, and followed my usual routine. Same coffee, same route, same quiet walk into the office. On the outside, nothing had changed, but inside, everything felt different. I got to my desk earlier than usual, hoping to avoid her. It worked, for about 20 minutes. "Morning, Ethan." I froze for half a second before looking up. Lena stood beside my desk, holding a coffee cup. Like yesterday, she looked completely at ease. No tension, no hesitation. Just calm. "Morning," I replied. I kept my tone neutral, but I could feel that same tightness in my chest returning. She didn't leave. Instead, she glanced at my screen. "You always start this early?" "Most days." That was it. Just a small, thoughtful sound. Then she pulled the empty chair near my desk and sat down. I stiffened slightly. "Do you need something?" "Not really," she said. "Just trying to get to know the team." Something about the way she said it didn't feel casual. It felt intentional. I turned back to my screen, pretending to focus. You'll probably learn more from Marcus. I will, she said. But people don't always show their real selves to team leads. That made my fingers pause on the keyboard. Slowly, I looked at her again. She was watching me, not aggressively, not accusingly, just carefully. People have layers, she continued. Some of them, they hide better than others. There it was again, that same subtle pressure. I exhaled quietly. You talk like you already know everyone here. She tilted her head slightly. Not everyone. A small pause. Just the interesting ones. The hours that followed were tense in a different way. She didn't push too hard. Didn't repeat what she said yesterday, but she stayed close. A comment here, a question there. Always normal on the surface, but with something underneath that I couldn't ignore. And the worst part? I couldn't tell if it was real or if I was just overthinking everything. By noon, I couldn't take it anymore. I stood up abruptly, grabbing my phone. I'm heading out for coffee. Marcus looked up from his desk. Bring me one? Yeah. I didn't wait for anyone else to respond. I just needed space. The cafe down the street was quiet like usual. Soft music, low voices. The smell of fresh coffee filling the air. I ordered, grabbed a seat near the window, and finally let myself breathe. For the first time since yesterday, I felt a little distance from everything. Maybe I was overreacting, maybe Lena was just observant. Maybe she liked reading people, making vague statements, seeing how they responded. People like that existed. Right? Mind if I sit? My chest tightened. I looked up. Lena. Of course. Go ahead, I said, even though part of me wanted to say no. She sat across from me, placing her cup on the table. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then she leaned back slightly, studying me again. You left fast, she said. I needed coffee. You had coffee at the office. I didn't respond. She smiled faintly. You're easy to read when you're stressed. That hit a little too close. I'm not stressed, I said. No, she asked softly. Then why do you keep checking your surroundings like someone's about to call you out? My jaw tightened. I hadn't even realized I was doing that. She noticed. Of course she did. I leaned forward slightly, lowering my voice. Okay, enough. Her expression didn't change. That thing you said yesterday? I continued. Stop playing around. If you know something, just say it. For the first time, there was a small shift in her eyes. Not surprise, not fear, just interest. I didn't realize you'd take it this seriously, she said. Don't, I replied. Don't act like it was nothing. She held my gaze for a few seconds. Then she looked down at her coffee, gently stirring it. You know, she said quietly, people always think secrets stay buried. My chest tightened again. But they don't, she continued. Not really. My mind started racing. This wasn't random. This wasn't a joke. This was something else. Something real. I swallowed slowly. What do you think you know? She looked up again. Straight into my eyes, and for a second, it felt like she could actually see through everything. Through the calm front. Through the careful life I had built. Through the version of me everyone else believed in. You tell me, she said. The silence between us stretched, and just like that. The past I had been holding down for so long started pushing its way back up. I leaned back in my chair, exhaling slowly. You don't know anything, I said. But my voice didn't sound convincing. Not even to me. It happened 2 years ago. Different city. Different job. Different version of me. I was working at a fast-growing tech company. Smaller team, tight deadlines, Everyone trying to prove themselves. I was good at what I did. Too good, maybe. I got noticed quickly, got more responsibility, more access, and that's where things started to go wrong. There was a project, important, high pressure, tied to a major client. Something in the system wasn't right. A flaw. Small at first, but dangerous if left unchecked. I found it before anyone else. I should have reported it. That's what I told myself at the time. But things weren't that simple. There were deadlines, expectations, pressure from above. Fixing it properly would have delayed everything. And I didn't want to be the reason the project failed. So I made a choice. A quiet one. I adjusted the code. Not a full fix. Just enough to hide the issue temporarily. I told myself it was under control. That I'd fix it properly later, but later never came, because a few weeks after deployment, things started breaking, not immediately, but slowly, and when it did, it hit hard. The system crashed during a critical moment for the client. Data was affected, trust was broken, and suddenly, everyone was looking for someone to blame. I could have spoken up. I could have told them what I did, but I didn't. I stayed quiet. And somehow, the blame shifted. Not fully onto one person, but enough that no one looked too closely at me. The company took a hit. The team fractured, and I left, quietly, before anyone could dig deeper, before anyone could connect the dots. I started over. New city, new job, new life. And I buried that version of myself as deep as I could. I blinked, pulling myself back to the present. Lena was still watching. Me silent, waiting. You're guessing, I said finally. That's all this is. She didn't respond right away. Then, slowly, she shook her head. I didn't say which secret, she said. My stomach dropped. What? I said I know your secret, she repeated softly. I never said what. It was. The words hit differently this time. Sharper, more precise. You filled in the rest on your own. I stared at her, my mind trying to catch up. So she didn't know? Or she knew enough to make me think she knew everything? Why would you say that? I asked. Her expression softened slightly. For the same reason you reacted, she said. I frowned. Which is? She held my gaze for a moment. Then she leaned back, exhaling quietly. You're not the only one with a past, Ethan. That stopped me. There was something different in her voice now. Less probing, more real. What does that mean? I asked, but she was already standing up. She picked up her cup and gave me one last look. Not a smirk, not a test, just something calm, almost understanding. You'll figure it out, she said. And then she walked away. I sat there, completely still. My heart was still racing. But now, it wasn't just fear. It was confusion, doubt, and something else I couldn't quite name. She didn't confirm anything, didn't deny anything. But somehow, she had pulled everything out of me without even asking directly. I looked down at my hands. They were slightly tense, just like yesterday. Everything felt unstable again. But this time, there was a new thought in my mind, a different possibility. What if she wasn't here to expose me? What if this wasn't about ruining my life? I leaned, back slowly, staring at the empty chair across from me, because if that was true, then there was only one question left. What if she wasn't here to expose me, but for something else? I didn't go back to the office right away. After Lena left the cafe, I stayed there for a long time, staring at the empty chair across. From me, like it might explain something if I looked at it long enough. It didn't. But one thing was clear now. This wasn't simple. And whatever Lena knew, or didn't know, it wasn't random. By the time I returned to the office, the afternoon had settled into its usual rhythm. People were working, talking, moving around like nothing had changed. But for me, everything had shifted. I walked to my desk, sat down, and tried to focus. It didn't work. My thoughts kept circling back to one thing. You're not the only one with a past. What did that mean? And why did it feel like she wasn't trying to threaten me, but understand me? I glanced toward her desk. She was there, typing, focused on her screen. Normal, composed, like always. For a moment, I considered ignoring everything, just going back to my routine, pretending none of this mattered. That had worked before. Avoid, stay quiet, move on. But something inside me resisted, because this time, it didn't feel like I could just walk away, not without knowing the truth. Stood up before I could change my mind and walked straight toward her desk. "Can we talk?" I said. She looked up almost immediately. No surprise, like she had been expecting this. "Sure," she replied, closing her laptop. "Let's go." We didn't go far. Just outside the building, near a quiet corner where a few benches faced the street. The evening light was soft, casting long shadows across the pavement. For a few seconds, neither of us spoke. Then I turned to her. "No more vague hints," I said. "No more games. I need to know what this is." She nodded slightly. "That's fair." Her voice was calm, steady. But this time, there was something else in it. Honesty. "I wasn't trying to mess with you," she continued. "Not the way you think." "Then what was that?" I asked. "Because it didn't feel random." It wasn't. That single answer tightened something in my chest. I waited, and this time, she didn't avoid it. "I know about the company you worked at before this," she said. My stomach dropped instantly. "So you did know," I said quietly. "I know some things," she corrected. "Not everything." I looked away for a second, exhaling slowly. It was happening. The past I had buried wasn't buried anymore. "How?" I asked. She hesitated, just briefly. Then she spoke. "My older brother worked there." I turned back to her. "What?" "He wasn't on your team," she explained. "Different department, but he was there." When everything went wrong, the air felt heavier. "He told me about it," she continued. "Not in detail, but enough." I stayed silent. Every word she said felt like it was pulling something out into the open. "There was a system failure," she said. "A project that collapsed at the worst possible time. People got blamed. Some deserved it, some didn't." Her eyes met mine again. "And there were rumors," she added softly, "that the real cause wasn't what people thought." My chest tightened. "So you came here to investigate?" I asked. "No." Her answer was immediate, clear, and completely different from what I expected. "I came here because of you," she said. "That caught me off guard." "Because of me?" She nodded. "My brother mentioned your name once," she said. "Just once. He said, there was one person who left too quietly, too clean." A cold feeling settled in my chest. "That doesn't prove anything," I said. "I know," she replied. "That's why I didn't come here assuming you were guilty." I frowned slightly. "Then what did you assume?" She looked at me for a moment. Then she said something I didn't expect. "I assumed there was more to the story." The silence that followed felt different this time. Not tense, not sharp, just real. "You could have reported it," I said, "if you thought something was wrong." "I didn't have proof," she replied. "And honestly, I wasn't trying to expose you." "Then why?" I asked again. This time her expression softened. "Because I've seen what happens when people carry things like that alone." she said quietly. Something in her voice shifted, and for the first time, it wasn't about me. My brother, she continued. He blamed himself for a lot of what happened back then, even things that weren't his fault. I watched her carefully. He thought he missed something, she said. Thought he should have caught the issue earlier. It stayed with him. A pause. He changed after that. I didn't interrupt. More closed off, more distant, like he was always replaying it in his head. She looked down briefly. I didn't want to see someone else end up like that. Her words hit differently. Not like an accusation. Not like a threat, just truth. So you decided to test me? I said. I wanted to see how you'd react, she admitted. To understand if there was something there. I let out a quiet breath. And? She looked at me again. There is, she said simply. I nodded slightly. No point denying it now. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then I said the thing I had been avoiding since the beginning. I didn't mean for it to happen the way it did. My voice was low, steady, but heavy. I found the flaw early, I continued. I knew it was a problem, but fixing it properly would have delayed everything, and I paused, shaking my head slightly. I thought I could manage it. Just temporarily. Lena listened without interrupting. I adjusted the system, I said. Not enough to fix it, just enough to hide it. The words felt heavier now that they were out loud. I told myself I'd go back and fix it later, I added. But things got busy, deadlines kept coming, and I let it sit. I swallowed. And when it failed at the worst time possible. The memory still felt sharp. People got blamed, I said. And I didn't say anything. That was the part that mattered most, the part I couldn't justify. I left instead, I finished, before anyone could figure it out. The air between us was quiet again, but this time, it didn't feel suffocating. It felt lighter, like something had finally been said that needed to be said. Lena didn't react immediately. She just stood there, taking it in. Then she asked one question. Did anyone else know about the flaw? I frowned slightly. There was one person, I said slowly, a junior developer. He noticed something was off, but he wasn't sure. What happened to him? She asked. I don't know, I admitted. After everything, I didn't stay to find out. She nodded slightly. Then she looked back at me. You made a mistake, she said. I let out a small, humorless breath. That's one way to put it. But it wasn't just carelessness, she added. I looked at her, confused. You were trying to keep things moving, she said, trying not to be the reason everything slowed down. That doesn't make it right, I replied. I didn't say it did, she said calmly. But it matters. I didn't know what to say to that. For so long I had only seen it one way, a mistake, a failure, something to hide. But the way she said it, it didn't erase what I did, but it changed how it felt. Slightly. I'm not here to expose you, Ethan, she said after a moment. I know that now, I replied. I just needed to understand, she continued. For myself. And maybe for my brother, too. I nodded slowly. That's it? That's it. We stood there for a while longer. No tension, no pressure, just quiet understanding. Then she smiled slightly. Not the same smile as before. This one felt real. You're not as hard to read as you think, she said. I shook my head faintly. And you're not as mysterious as you try to be. She let out a soft laugh. Fair enough. As we walked back toward the building, something felt different. Not completely fixed, not perfectly resolved, but lighter. Like a weight I had been carrying for years had finally shifted. Not gone, but no longer crushing. At the door, she stopped. "Hey," she said. I looked at her. "For what it's worth, I don't think that one mistake defines you." I held her gaze for a moment, then nodded. "Thanks." That night back in my apartment, everything felt quieter. Not empty, not heavy, just calm. I sat on the couch, staring at the same walls, the same space I had lived in for months, but it didn't feel exactly the same anymore. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't trying to push the past away. I wasn't pretending it didn't exist. I had faced it, said it out loud, and somehow that made a difference, a real one. I leaned back, exhaling slowly, because for the first time in years, my secret didn't feel like a weight. It felt like something I had finally survived.